Push record. So welcome everyone to this public forum concerning City Ordinance 16690, which is commonly referred to as the restaurant tax. This forum today has two purposes. One is to educate the public about the discussions that have been taking place related to this restaurant tax. And two, to hear public feedback about the proposed changes to this ordinance. We want this to be a good discussion today. We want to hear your feedback. It's meant to be a productive forum, and more than anything today, we want all voices to be heard. So please don't leave until you've asked whatever questions are on your mind, or with it we've clarified anything that may be unclear to you at this time. I would say after all of us just want what's best for this community. We just have different opinions about, or viewpoints about how we get there. So this forum is meant to be something productive for all of us, and hopefully at the end of this forum, we'll all have a better understanding of where we all stand. This forum is being recorded today, and it'll be placed on our website as quickly as possible after this meeting so that you can go back and view it if you need to. So I want to introduce some people in this room that I've invited to help me be able to answer some questions that may come up that I'm not able to answer. So if I can just have Tracy introduce yourself, please.
I'm Tracy Pierce. I'm the tourism director for Mount Joy Montgomery County.
And Eric.
Eric Jones. I'm a member of the Parks and Rec Board. Okay,
and so we've got a lot of information to pass. If there's something that I can't answer, I'll certainly reach out to one of these two individuals to help me answer your inquiries or questions. And if I can't answer it today, then I will take down your information and do the best I can to get back with you and get you the information. So how did we get here? So I'm going to start from the basics, okay? Per Kentucky Revised Statutes, which is Kentucky law, some cities are authorized to institute a restaurant tax. I'm sorry about the feedback. I don't think that's ours.
I think that caused it. Is the mic on?
Where is my phone?
Just for now.
Let me go.
Thank you. Chief to the rescue. Thank you, Chief. Okay. So let me start again. Per Kentucky Revised Statutes, which is Kentucky law, some cities are authorized to institute a restaurant tax. So this is not to be confused with a hotel-motel tax. It's a totally separate discussion. A hotel-motel tax we do have in place that's applicable to the whole county, and that's to help fund tourism. So what we're talking about today is the restaurant tax. Restaurant tax is authorized of cities of a certain size. The Department for Local Government maintains a registry. Can we unplug that, please?
Yeah, we had it earlier this morning.
I don't know what it is. I apologize to everyone. So the Department for Local Government maintains a registry of what cities qualify to institute this tax. Not all cities across the state of Kentucky may institute this tax. So only cities of a certain size may put this tax in place. So those cities were formally classified as 4th or 5th class cities. So I want you to kind of picture in your mind, prior to 2015, you put every city by population size in a list. The bigger cities are class 1, class 2, class 3. They kind of work their way down. Class 4 and 5 are cities that are of similar size to Mount Sterling, okay? The reason this was in place is because over time the Kentucky legislature gave certain cities powers or authorities that they may not grant to others. I really apologize to everyone. This has never happened before. There's some feedback somewhere.
If we move the mic up a little bit or something, I can't get down there. So.
Yeah, just move it back.
Or back or up or something. That might help.
Okay, so for instance, certain cities may have term limits. Certain cities may have certain protections for some of their public employees, certain size cities. Certain cities,
I think it's mine.
there's just something up in here causing feedback, I'm sorry. Okay, so certain cities could institute a restaurant tax. So now those kind of classes have went away, and we only have two classes in the state of Kentucky. There is a first class or a home rule, two classes. But the way Kentucky looks at it is whatever rules were previously in place, that's the rules we go by as far as restaurant tax. So the fourth and fifth class cities can institute that. So for example, Lexington can't institute a restaurant tax. They didn't fall into that class of city which had that authority. So interestingly enough, counties don't have the legal authority to institute a restaurant tax either. So that's why you have certain counties or certain restaurants outside of our city limits that a restaurant tax would not be applicable toward, because it's not the county's fault. The county can't institute that tax. No county can. And then the restaurant tax, I would say, is a very positive thing for the city of Mount Sterling. This gives us revenue to be able to fund tourism or recreational activities, and keeps us from having to use occupational taxes or property taxes or insurance premium taxes that we receive to help fund tourism or recreation. So in my opinion, you can have your own opinions, but in my opinion, I think it's a good thing that we have this avenue, this opportunity in our community to be able to raise revenue to help fund nice things in our community. So under Kentucky law, that list of cities I talked about, 231 total. They're all listed in this Kentucky legal handbook. 231 cities have the ability to levy a restaurant tax, but only about 50 do. We're one of those 50. Of those 50 that can institute that tax, 37 of them have 3% in place. So we're currently at 2% of gross receipts of sales, okay? And then some have, 1%. The state average, if you're interested, is 2.7%. That's the state average for what a restaurant tax is, or what a restaurant tax in place would be for cities. We can only legally go up to 3%. So right now we're at 2, you can only legally, by law, go up to 3. Pam, would you care to pass that around to folks? That's just a list of cities that institute a restaurant tax. I would say, I want everybody to know all revenue, once again, that's collected from this must be spent on tourism or recreational activities. It can't be spent on anything else. Ordinance 16690 that was passed on May 15th, 1990, went into effect July 1st, 1990. It instituted a 2% tax on all gross retail sales of restaurants doing business inside of the city limits of Mount Sterling. I would note now for everyone that this applies to food trucks or mobile food sales. And if you're wondering what this tax looks like and you don't have a clear understanding, it's 2 cents on every dollar. Okay? 2 cents on every dollar. So for every dollar spent in a restaurant, there'd be 2 cents added onto that. For $10, that's 20 cents. For $100, that'd be $2. Okay? So just so you have in your head kind of what that restaurant tax is. This tax is a usage or a consumption type tax, which basically means if you don't eat out, then you don't pay this tax. So some people really prefer this type of tax because it only applies to you if you're spending money in the restaurants. And I would note the restaurants are not being taxed. This is not a tax on our restaurants. The consumers who go in to spend money are the ones that are paying that tax. The restaurants are simply collecting the tax. and then turning it over to the city. This is on all prepared or ready-to-eat foods. This tax does not apply to most items you'd find in a grocery store, so if you're walking down an aisle and pulling a can of beans off the shelf, that's not a restaurant tax. But if you're walking in a grocery and you go back to the deli and they make you a prepared meal that you would take with you in a container that is, a ready-to-eat type container for immediate consumption, then that tax may apply. So yes, some of our grocery stores are also paying a restaurant tax depending on what they're providing there. But in your mind, just think dine-in, carry-out, catering, food trucks, all of those within the city limits would pay that tax. There's nowhere in this ordinance 16690 that states a tax was to go away if any conditions were met. You can go on the front page of our website and download that ordinance if you wish to, and you can see there's no sunset clause in that ordinance. This tax may be lowered by council. This tax could be repealed by council. If that whole ordinance was repealed, then that could certainly go away. But that's the city council's decision to make. Per that ordinance, all monies collected are used to promote tourism, convention, or recreational activities. The city of Mount Sterling only collects this revenue, so we don't keep any of it. We take it, we put it in a fund, and then quarterly we distribute that out to the entities that receive it. It is distributed directly to tourism, and that's because the KRS says the money has to be distributed to tourism. From tourism, that gets distributed out to several different entities who have all made cases or claims that they have a need for a portion of that restaurant tax. I would note, because I've seen, and I'm going to be talking about, some of the social media things we see, that this is not an optional tax. So I've seen that posted that restaurants have an option. It's not optional. Restaurants must, if they're within the city limits and prepare meals, pay that tax. And I would say our restaurants 99% of the time pay that right on time. We generally do not have any issues whatsoever with our restaurants paying that. The only times that a restaurant may be late is sometimes they'll change owners, they'll get accounting change, different accountants. There's always circumstances to where they may have not been able to pay on time, but we as a city work with every restaurant, and if they don't pay, then we certainly stay on them until they're able to follow through and then pay that tax. Because after all, if they're collecting it, they have a legal requirement to turn that back over to the city as per the ordinance. So we anticipate this revenue to be about $1.15 million this year from the restaurant tax. Someone had submitted a question online and said, what does it look like over the past 2 or 3 years? So last year was 1.15 million. Generally you project based on what you received the previous year. The year prior was 1.1 million in revenue. The year prior to that, it was 1 million in revenue. And I would remind you that's 2% on all gross receipts. So we often get questions wanting to know about specific restaurants and what they're paying. And I would tell you today, I can't tell you what a specific restaurant pays because that's protected information. So for example, some of you are paying an occupational tax to the county in here. The county can't release what you're paying to the public because that wouldn't be fair to your business to release your net profits reporting to the county. So I cannot tell you what any of the restaurants are individually paying just because that's protected information. All I can give you is the whole, okay? And the whole is what I had just reported, that 1.15 million is what was collected. A breakdown of kind of who gets what. Parks and Recreation last year, it was $1,080,000 roughly. That's about 94% of what was collected overall. Tourism, $30,000. Great Area Regional Arts Center, $15,000, Airport, $15,000, and then the Historical Society and the Museum received about $10,000, or they received $10,000, I'm sorry. Those percentages are historical and predate my term in office. So when something's working, what's that old saying? You don't try to fix it, right? So what those percentages or those numbers have worked for quite some time. So we've had discussions about possibly changing that. I know people wish to continue having those discussions, and they're all good. But right now, that's the breakdown of who is getting what with that restaurant tax. The common denominator with all that activity is that every one of those entities are providing recreational or tourism-related activities. Parks and Rec alone has identified to the city of Mount Sterling $5.2 million in wants and needs. So you can sit and argue what's a want and what's a need, right? But the reality is we as a city and a county have established a Parks and Recreation Commission to run Parks and Rec. And we have a requirement as a city and a county to try to provide them with the revenue they need in order to provide the services that the public is requesting of them. So, not only has Parks and Rec asked for money, Gateway Regional Arts Center has asked for revenue because they have several long-term projects. The airport has a new terminal. They're continuing to grow, which is great. The Historical Society is wanting to expand. I'm not putting Tracy on the spot, but Tracy has a lot of big ideas that she'd like to do for tourism. She does a great job with the budget she has, bringing in different acts, people to play in the community, helping sponsor events that are taking place. But certainly Tracy is wanting to grow also and do more for this community to bring people in and to promote this wonderful community that we have. So I'm just going to tell you the city can't come up with $5.2 million. I cannot. There is no way. We collect in property taxes a year right around 1.2. So think about that. They need $5.2 million. Let's say we split that in half with the county and agree both. We're going to come up with, what would that be? 2.6 million roughly. So we're going to come up with that. That's 2 years of property taxes that we collect. So those are some pretty staggering numbers for your local governments to try to dig into our budgets and try to make up shortfalls just in Parks and Rec alone. So what the proposed change is, or the discussion that we've been having, is regarding a change in the receipts of the tax from 2% of gross receipts to 3%. And as I mentioned before, 3% is the max that can be collected by law. So under this proposal, under our discussions, the new rate would go into effect January of 2027. So it's nothing immediate, and you'd say, well, why would you wait? Well, to be fair to the restaurants, because it's not fair to a restaurant to change the rules in the middle of a tax year. So that's why we thought that it would be better to wait if we were to do this until 2027. And you don't want to mess up their current year tax reporting. The projected increase in revenues, if we raise this from 2% to 3%, would be about $575,000 per year. So when I kind of mentioned about the restaurant tax before, and that 2 cents on every dollar, I went out and got a combo meal for breakfast last week. The receipt was $7.99 total. It was $7.39 for the meal. It was 45 cents to the state because they have 6% sales tax. And then the 2% was 15 cents. I paid 15 cents on that meal, and that goes to tourism and recreation related activities. Under the new rate, if we were to raise this to 3%, then that meal would now cost $8.06. It'd still be $7.39 for the meal, 45 cents for your state tax, and then 22 cents for the restaurant tax. So it's a change of 7 cents there in that meal. So if I did that 10 times a month, then what's that look like? If that was the only place I ate out, that's 70 cents more a month I'm paying over a course of a year, that's $8.40. So that would be different for everybody. I eat out probably 3 times a week, so I'm gonna pay a little more. I've had somebody contact me that said they eat out once every 6 months, so, you know, it's not gonna impact them as much. But I just say that to help you kind of visualize in your head what that change looks like. So I don't take any of this lightly. No one wants to talk about raising any taxes in the community because we know those are very difficult conversations and we don't want to have them. But given the other options to make up the shortfalls in this community, I feel myself that this is the best one. I don't think property tax, I don't think placing the burden on workers through an occupational tax or business owners or through property owners through a property tax is the fairest way to do this. I think the restaurant tax is a good option because it's consumption based and it's not placing all the responsibility on one party. We're spread loading that around. Everybody pays if you eat out, to include those outside your community. Hang on, will you please pass that out? So I've just got a chart that I was going to give you some examples. We have a company that we have contracted, that we've got a membership to, and we share that with the Chamber and Tourism and Parks and Rec and the county. It's called Placer AI, and it's a company that collects data. And it basically goes in and counts people, and it's counting people through this. So this right here is 40353 because that's where I live, in 40353. If you live in Jeffersonville, that's 40337, okay? So this handout, if you could just bear with me, I'm almost done. We're going to open this up for questions and comments. So that first part is who's eating where. I picked out 5 restaurants just through all parts of town. 3 of them fast food, 2 of them sit down. That first restaurant, 920,000 total visits for the year. Unique visitors, 118,000, almost 119,000 visitors. So some people eat out more than once, right, at a restaurant. That's why that 118 is unique visitors. Okay. 40353, 49.7% of the people that ate at that restaurant were from 40353. If I add Jeffersonville in there, that's 58.6% of the people that ate at that restaurant are from Montgomery County. So everybody else, that 41.4%, are outside of our community. It could be a neighboring county, it could be somebody that's driving from Washington, D.C. to L.A. that just chooses to stop off here and get something at one of our restaurants. But the outside visitors, when you take those numbers, are 49,142 that ate at that restaurant and are paying for our tourism and recreation related activities outside this county. They're helping pay for our nice things. Restaurant 2, you can kind of see those numbers. I won't go through them again, but outside visitors, 34,465. Let's look at a sit-down restaurant, D. 290,000 people, or 290,000 visits at that restaurant. 109,000 of those were visitors. Adding up 40353 and 40337, that's 37%. That means 63% of the people that ate in that sit-down restaurant, or 68,670 people, are from outside of Montgomery County. That 68,000 are helping pay for our parks, our tourism, our arts center, airport, and historical society. Who's using our parks? Look at those numbers there, please. Botts Park, total visits, 63.9 thousand, 25,000 unique visitors. 60% are from 40353, adding in Jeffersonville, that's 68%. So all others, 28.8% of the people that visited Botts Park last year are from outside our community. So we have people coming in from other counties. I have seen buses from other counties bringing kids in because those counties think our parks are pretty nice. And they bring their kids in to play over here. And might I add, I'm only counting phones. So if a kid don't have a phone, it's not registering on these numbers I'm giving you. Easy Walker Park, 79,000 visitors. You can see 52% are from Montgomery County, 48% from outside the county. That's unique visitors, 38,000 people that enjoyed Easy Walker Park from outside of Montgomery County. And then the Mound, which is relatively new data, but we had 2,472 people from outside of Montgomery County enjoying the nice things that we're trying to provide to our community here. On the bottom, I've just got some different talking points, but the one that on the far right-hand side, if you take the top 10 restaurants in this county where people spend their money, 9 of those are collecting a restaurant tax. And that restaurant tax is going right back in to help fund tourism and recreation activities. So that's a good thing. All these people that are coming in, these outside visitors are coming in and visiting our parks and enjoying our parks, and then they go and hopefully spend a little money in our community, and it helps fund those parks, helps fund our tourism-related activities. So just wanted you to have that, and we can talk about that more if you've got any questions. But the last thing that I would say, and I just wanted to open up to you, and thank you so much for being patient, because I'm trying to provide you the data up front, hopefully to answer some of your questions. I just want to say my feedback here at City Hall on this, I've had one phone call. One phone call. And that phone call was from an individual who said, the penny's going away and they're rounding up in the restaurants. And I would much rather give my penny or two away, that rounding up, I'd much rather give it to my parks than I would to a restaurant. That was that person's feedback. I appreciated that. That's not something we really talked about too much. I got 3 emails for the parks and for the proposed raise to the tax, gave me very detailed explanations of why they were for it. I had 4 emails sent to me objecting to a raise in the restaurant tax. And then I've had a dozen other conversations with people just trying to seek more info, which is why I felt the need to provide you with as much info. We have not done a good job as a city of explaining the restaurant tax. So that's part of the reason I've talked so long. So I promise I'm about ready to wrap this up. Some comments I saw on social media that I just want to address right now. One, there's no sunset clause in this ordinance anywhere. This ordinance was to go away when Easy Walker Park was paid. Number 2, restaurant tax doesn't fund roads. So I've seen some people say, if we collect it, you're just going to put it toward roads or sidewalks. It does not. I've explained that. It doesn't go toward that infrastructure. The tax does not fund the boys' high school basketball program. That was on social media. Comments about the city continues to raise property taxes. City has not raised any property taxes. Our property taxes are at the lowest rate they've been since 2008. Park concessions did not take in $1 million last year. Eric?
I would agree.
Okay, so they did not. If park concessions were taking in $1 million, we wouldn't even be having this discussion here. I saw comments that this is an honor system who pays the tax. That's not correct. I've already told you our restaurants are very good community partners and they do what's asked of them. Saw comments that the only reason we're raising this is to paint more murals downtown. The murals are not paid for through the restaurant tax. And then another comment that no restaurants will ever want to come to our community if we raise this tax. Moorhead's at 3%. They just announced a new restaurant this week. So I'm sorry, but I don't buy that argument either. Restaurants do their homework. They know where they're going to make their investments, and they know if they can provide a good service and turn a profit, then they're going to make an investment in the community, whether a restaurant tax is there or not, because there's 37 other communities that have a bunch of restaurants too, and they're going to theirs. So, I've provided you a lot, you all have been very patient and kind, and thank you for allowing me to do that. So now I would just like to open it up to you to ask any questions you have, make any comments you want.